Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. Look, America has a very serious problem. We are not turning out enough children. That's right, children. In order to keep up with current population, and this is big when it comes to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, every woman in America needs to have 2.1 babies. I'll explain why the 0.1, but 2.1 babies. Right now, we're about 1.6 babies, falling way behind. This is an issue. President Trump has come out with his $5,000 baby bonus. I'm not a fan of the baby bonus. Now, I love President Trump's effort here to encourage people to have babies, but I'm not sure I like the idea. I think this is only going to encourage the wrong people to have babies. There's a few things that need to happen to encourage the right people to have babies, and I actually think President Trump is doing that, and he may not even know it. We're going to talk about this on the program today as Stinchfield gets started here. But before we get to the show, let me tell you about my friends over at Colonial Metals Group. Folks, do you have a 401k or IRA that is precious metals based? If you don't, I want you to go to freegoldguide.com/grant. freegoldguide.com/grant. Colonial Metals can take a portion of your IRA or 401k or the whole thing and turn it into a precious metals IRA. This is about a portfolio protection maneuver. It's about having a physical commodity you can hold. Gold you can hold. Gold has stood the test of time as an inflation hedge, as a chaos hedge. Gold continues to go up, 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 and it looks like there's no end in sight. As China's buying gold, just about every central bank in the world is buying gold. So again, freegoldguide.com/grant. Get your free gold guide there. A lot of great helpful information in there. Or just call them at 1-800-458-7356. That's 1-800-458-7356. freegoldguide.com. Big thanks to my friends at Colonial Metals. Folks, we have a very big problem in America. We are not turning out children enough. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we're not having kids at the rate we should be? In order to sustain the population that we have now, every woman in America needs to bear at least 2.1 children. Okay? Every single one of you. Ladies, you listening to me? 2.1 children. Anything less than that, we do not sustain the population. Now, to me, that seems like an awful lot. You know I love my son Wyatt, but I wasn't always there on having kids. The old line that I use, I love kids, especially if they're properly cooked. But that's just a joke. You know that. I think I like dogs better. I think. I mean, I was staying down in Dana Point. We had the Unite IE conference in Ontario, and I was staying down there, and we're at the hotel, and there's kids in the hot tub screaming. I'm like, I pay for this? What do I pay for here? Kids screaming in the hot tub. My very special lady friend says, no, they're cute. You'd be happier if it was a dog barking. I said, I think I would be happier if it was a dog barking than the kids screaming. But anyway, I digress. We need to turn out, or you do, ladies, 2.1 children in order to keep the population. Here's the sad reality. The 0.1, this is sad. This is not joking. The reason it's 0.1 is because not all kids live to adulthood to have more children. So that's why you need the 0.1. But the fact is families are a good thing. The other fact is I'm not sure we as a society are in a position to be turning out more children. I think the family unit is breaking down at a rate we've never seen before. I think the lack of fathers and even the lack of mothers in households. You see grandparents raising kids now. And when I say lack of fathers, I'm going to say this from a selfish perspective. I'm divorced. I'm divorced now. My son's 16, so I'm 12 years. Divorced 12 years. His mom and me were very involved in this kid's life. Is it the ideal situation? Is it better than all of us sitting down at the kitchen table like what was the Mayberry or Leave It to Beaver, all sitting down and great family? Is it as good as that? No, but we're involved. The problem is when you have a mother or father that is completely not involved. And that's happening more and more and more. Here, I'll use another example. So we're at this beautiful hotel called the Monarch. Many of you probably know it. I urge you, go have cocktails. It's a great view. I mean, it's just fabulous. There was a wedding going on. This wedding, I bet you it had to cost $200,000-$300,000. They did not skip a beat when it came to this wedding. And I'm talking to another gentleman who we flew down on the plane together just coincidentally, and we're talking later on in the lobby bar of the hotel. He was going to the wedding. We weren't. We were just watching it. We spectated it. It was an event. I mean, this wedding was unbelievable. And he said, what do you think they spent? I said, I'll bet you they spent $250,000, maybe $300,000 on this wedding. I said, it's too bad they're not going to be married in 10 years. I said, here they are kissing each other on the altar, and in 10 years from now, they're going to be screaming and yelling about who's going to be paying for the divorce attorney and screaming and yelling about custody of the kids. And they'll be lucky if they have 2 kids. They probably will. And it'll be a nightmare in 10 years from now. Well, the dad laughed at me. Everybody else got mad at me. How could I be so pessimistic? I don't know. I am, though, because it seems to me like everybody gets divorced these days. So how are we going to keep up with the population? 855-785-8255, 855-785-8255. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Scott from the high desert, do you have something to say on this? I can't read the little writing here. Do you have something to say on the family unit?
Yeah, the reason they're not having kids is because there's a lot of grown adults still living with their parents. So they really haven't began their adult life by themselves in their own home kind of a deal. But the real reason I wanted to call was because the Unite IE on Saturday was really cool. Yeah. And Villanueva actually signed a book for me. But the reason what I wanted to say was I was within earshot at table 63 of probably 5 or 6 silver-haired ladies, probably in late 60s. And every time you got up to the podium, they all stopped what they were doing and completely paid attention to what you were saying. So I don't know what superpower you have over the older ladies, but you definitely have it, Grant. And I'm just bummed Jen wasn't here to hear it.
Scott, you're awesome. I appreciate the phone call. You raised a good point about people getting married later and living at home longer. As for these silver-haired old ladies, I've always been a hit with the old ladies. We call it the silver crowd. And I've always been a hit with them. I'm a great bingo player. In fact, I may be, look, I know a lot of people accuse me of being cocky, but I may be one of the greatest bingo players that ever walked the face of the earth. I walk into an old folks' home and sit down and play bingo, and there ain't no way I'm going home not a winner. I'm going to tell you right now. And this is why sometimes they like me when I get there, but by the time I leave, they're not happy because all my cards are filled. My numbers come up like clockwork because I know how to pick the cards. And also, I use that power with the silver-haired ladies. I talk to them while they're calling the numbers, and then they miss their numbers. And so that's how you get an advantage on everybody. That's not true. If I did that, that would be very mean. I don't do that, but I am great at bingo. All right, but back to Scott's point on people living with their parents. Dan, the phone man, lives with his parents. Dan, I'm sorry I announced that. Did you want me to?
No, that's fine. We've talked
parents,
about it
before.
I
love seeing your mom and dad over the weekend. They're great. I see why you would want to hang with them for such a long time. But how old are you?
28.
28. Okay, so this is interesting because now you're getting to the point where if you're going to start thinking about kids, you got to start thinking about this over the next 7 years.
Absolutely.
All right, because you don't want to be a dad later than 35. I was a dad at 40. Is that right? Yeah, 40. That's a little late to the game. So, have I have you stumped?
No, I love having this conversation. I was just waiting for you to make sure you were.
All right. So you got 7 years, but you're at home.
Yeah.
You got to get out of the house in order to get the ladies. Yeah. I think. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's your mom calling. That's your mom calling to ask if you've taken your vitamins this morning.
No, that's a timer for a spot we're not going to do here. But
okay.
No, so I love having this discussion. I appreciate what he said. I'll get to that in a moment. But what I thought about is when we talk about the population deal, I think the big problem, and I'm not out here saying like, well, it's not that you're living at home, but honestly, just from what I've seen, I think the real issue we have is and I don't mean this as any slam, I'm not saying people out there who have kids, but sometimes it's the wrong people are having kids, or it's almost backwards, where there are people like me for different reasons. It's not just the living at home part, but it's kind of the upbringing I had and my life experience that I would not trade, where I think in, let's say, the homeschool community or certain Christian communities, if you don't settle down with your high school sweetheart, it becomes very hard to find people in different communities, because in certain cultures, it's like, boom, we found someone, we get married. And so there are people like me, I'm sure I'm not the only one, who did not have that experience, and now it's a lot harder, and I would love to have kids. Then there are people who, shack up and maybe don't have kids, or they have kids, but they didn't want to, and they're irritated. And so I think that's the real issue, is it's almost a social and cultural thing of the people who want to have kids like me for different reasons haven't found the person or haven't had the kids yet. And then there are people who just got together and had a kid by accident or are annoyed at the fact they have kids.
So finding the person is very important, because you can't have a kid without the lady, right? So that's your first goal, is you got to find the lady to have a kid with. There is an issue with people who are having kids that shouldn't be having kids.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, this happens with poor communities. It's not just Black and Hispanic communities that are overloaded with babies. You go to a trailer park in East Texas, you're going to have white families that are overloaded with babies. And I've got a theory on this. The theory on this is they've got nothing else. They can't afford anything else, but they want something to call their own. They don't have much control over their life, because they're either working a going nowhere job, or they're out of work, or they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, and they have no control over anything or anyone. But if they have their own baby, now you're going to have control over something, and you've got something you can call your own. A lot of this, too, goes to attitude. I always wondered why somebody has so much attitude, especially like angry people. And I think sometimes it's all they have is the attitude. They don't have anything else but attitude, so they embrace that. This is just like the kid, but this is the wrong population we want. We don't want poor, uneducated to be breeding at record rates. I'm not saying they shouldn't breed. I'm just saying they shouldn't be breeding at record rates. You want middle-class families having 2 kids. That's it. That's a fair assessment for a family. But we can't keep that up. Now, we didn't do our part. I only had 1 kid. My ex-wife, she's the one who actually had him. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. President Trump also offered up a baby bonus. I'll tell you about that here in a moment, see if that works. And we'll continue this conversation. 855-785-8255 is the number to weigh in. I'm Grant Stinchfield. I'll tell you what, folks, do you want to get 20% annualized interest on your investment paid to you monthly, that interest? You need to go to get20now.com. This is about Bitcoin mining, industrialized Bitcoin mining. You don't have to deal with the wild swings of cryptocurrency. It's going up, it's going down. No, you lock into a deal, 20% annualized interest paid money. This is what my friends over at NFN8 are doing. The website is get20now.com, of course, because you can get 20% annualized interest up to, depending on the deal you make them, paid out monthly. I am involved in this. I've made a sizable investment, and I can tell you this. The folks at NFN8 have lived up to their promises to me. I know all these guys personally, and it has been a great deal for me. I'm so happy with them. So if you want to get involved in this, and you don't want the ups and downs of the stock market, cryptocurrency, and you want to lock into that annualized rate of 20%, go to get20now.com. That's get20now.com, and you tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. A baby bonus. So we need women to have babies at a rate of 2.1 babies per woman in America in order to keep our current population rate going. And that's going to support things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Without these kids, these systems completely fall apart. So President Trump has offered up an idea to pay women $5,000 to have babies. I actually think the wrong people are going to be signing up for this plan. All right, $5,000. You know what it costs to raise a kid? That is a drop in the bucket for the first year. Maybe that might help you with some diapers. But you've got college, you've got car stuff, you've got school stuff, after school programs, you've got sports, you've got tutors, you've got clothing, food. When you have a 6'1", 250-pound, 16-year-old, food costs you a lot of money, okay? $5,000 isn't going to go anywhere. But he's trying to spur people on. Will it work? Right now, the United States birth rate has dropped to 1.62 children per woman. 1.62. So we need them to step up the game. Hungary is at United Kingdom 1.5, Hungary 1.5, Switzerland 1.4. Russia's like at 1.2. Vladimir Putin called it catastrophic that women aren't having babies in Russia. So is this $5,000 bonus a good idea? What's behind the drop in birth rate? I want to hear from you. 855-785-8255. Let's go out to line one, Ronald from Cotton. Ronald, what say you?
Morning, Greg. That's Colton, California.
Colton. All right. Well, you said Greg. I'm Grant. I said Cotton, and it's Colton, so we're even.
We're even. All right.
Okay.
Listen, I got a little experience in this, and I got to say it's kind of a sad story in a sense because, I think society and men in particularly, they kind of lost their way. Just like when society lost their way in going to church, the level keeps getting lower and lower. I'm 60 years old. I did marry my high school sweetheart. We've been married 37 years, and I'm going to be open here. We didn't have any kids because we had issues, and there's nothing we could have done. We tried, and it didn't happen, and I was okay with that, right? Because I felt that was happening. But I loved the woman that I married. And in fact, I didn't have a big wedding. I took my wife and we eloped to Las Vegas because I didn't have no money. And the night that I was going to take her, it was a weekend. We were having real quick. We had a party. I told my friends what I was doing, and they all pitched in. And they sent me to Vegas. I got married in Levi's. No witnesses. My two witnesses got drunk and got lost. Point is, I really love my wife, and we become friends. And I just think that in today's world, men are not willing to take that risk. Yeah. And men have become to a point where they want to control everything in life. And that's not the way it happens in marriage. And that's why I think they fall out of marriage. Well,
thank you. And I appreciate the phone call. I'm so happy that you guys are happy as well, Ronald. Thank you for calling in. It's sad because there is also the idea that I'm going to get so many women so mad at me. But I think that there's also a thing that women don't respect the roles that men play in a household either. And maybe because you have women with such great success in the world, and I love women with great success. Don't get me wrong. I want everybody, men and women, to have great success in the world. But the man's role of leading, whether it be because he can't lead or be because the woman doesn't want to embrace a leader, I also think this plays into divorce rates as well. Not a ruler, just a leader, okay? And there's a big difference in all of that. All right, let's go to John in Chatsworth, line 3. What say you, John?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I think you bring up two good points. One, as it relates to the $5,000 bonus, I think it's actually a step in the right direction. The things you listed about the long-term cost of kids, it's important. And I think we should be orchestrating our society to supporting parents throughout that entire life cycle. So if this is one step towards that direction, I mean, there's a lot of things Hungary does that maybe not that great, but they do a lot as it relates to supporting parents and encouraging them to pay that price.
Very different population makeup, though, in Hungary compared to the United States. So here's my biggest fear. The $5,000, I make a decent living. You know what, Mr. President? I'm blessed. I don't need your $5,000. I'll decide when I'm going to have a kid or not, right? Like that, you're going to have a lot of people. So $5,000 just to have a kid. Well, I was going to have a kid anyway. Let's go have some more kids. We'll put 15 grand in our pocket.
I was a foster kid. Yeah, I was a foster kid. There's a lot of people who do the foster care thing just for the money. And I agree with you. It's not great. It's not a great incentive. And so I'd love to see something a little more comprehensive and following the American way. But about the cause, I'd love to talk about, I think that there's an aspect that people, they want to introduce kids into a society that's hopeful, into something that, I mean, look, it's the religious who believe that, listen, this is part of God's plan for my life. For me, one, to have to sacrifice for my kids and to be able to give. This is what we want. We need more people that way who don't just think that my life is just about my preferences and what I want, that I want to bring kids to make me a better person, and also that I have a very hopeful view of the future. So I want to, like, bring kids into that to make it flourish further.
You know, it's a great point, John. Thank you so much for the call. I think President Trump is going to have a bigger effect on people having children than a $5,000 bonus. One of the reasons why I didn't want a child was, as a mainstream media reporter, going from the worst, most horrible event to the next. I said, I don't really want to bring a child into this world. This world is an evil, brutal place at times. It can also be a great one, but it can also be evil and brutal. And I didn't want to bring a kid in. I think with President Trump making America great again, you're going to have more families who say, you know what? This is a place I want to have kids in. This is a country that I want to raise my child in, and more people will start having kids just on the sheer fact that we're making America great again. All right, up next, Sheriff Alex Villanueva coming up next with a huge announcement that he made at the Unite IE Conservative Conference. He's going to make it again for us here. This is big, and it's going to make national news, I promise you. Stick with me. I'm Grant Stinchfield. Folks, could you have a health issue being caused by an invisible enemy? I'm going to tell you something. This is absolutely disgusting. Parasites have invaded most of our bodies, all right? I'm getting this parasite cleanse from the wellness company, and I think, honestly, that you should too. Here's why.
What are the main differences between ivermectin and fenbendazole? These are two anti-pathogens used to treat parasitic infections and other similar types of conditions. They are used quite often in the oncology world to treat cancer. They both have as anti-pathogenic abilities.
All right, anti-pathogenic. You don't want these parasites, folks. It's all interesting. 60 million people have apparently been infected with parasites. Scary. They're everywhere. Food, water, you name it. They secretly invade your body, wreaking havoc on your gut, energy levels, even your brain. And the mainstream media doesn't want you to think about it, because there's one great cleanse that can change your life, and it is from the wellness company. TWC.health/Grant. Use that promo code GRANT to save 10%. Just fill out a brief medical intake form. Get your parasite cleanse. It is FDA approved, and the wellness company can help you get that. I promise you, you will not regret it. Go to TWC.health/Grant for 10% off. Use that promo code GRANT, only from the wellness company. I believe that President Trump has started a movement. I believe the Make America Great Again movement is changing hearts and minds across the country. I also believe the radicalism of the left has empowered the Make America Great Again movement. I believe Republicans are becoming stronger and stronger because they are the party of common sense, and the radicals on the left have helped make that point for us. So when I hear a guy like Sheriff Alex Villanueva, the former sheriff of L.A. County, a Democrat, declare that he is now going to be a Republican, I say, boy, this movement is very, very real. Now, this is a guy I always looked at as a moderate Democrat, and I've said to him many times, I'm not really sure you're a Democrat. You sound more like a Republican. But I've watched him move to the right over the last 4 years that I've been in L.A. This is Sheriff Alex Villanueva at the Unite IE conference making this really awesome announcement.
As of today, I'm leaving the party of paid protests, purple hair, and pronouns. I'm joining the party of faith, family, and freedom, the Republican Party. Thank you.
All right,
I'm a practical person. I don't think we're going to see California red in our lifetimes, but I guarantee you we can make it purple. And we can make it work again, and let's make that happen.
Well, I love it. And that's the kind of fight that we have from former L.A. County Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who is our guest this morning. Sheriff, it is great to have you on the program. Congratulations and welcome to the Republican Party.
Oh, thank you, Grant. Much appreciated. That was an awesome day yesterday.
Well, it sure was. You got a huge applause from the crowd. You know, you had been coming to these conferences of ours, whether it's Town Hall, Unite IE. You always got a popular figure there because you've been willing to speak out against the left. But this change, this switch of parties, and you were wearing a red tie. Why the switch? Why now?
Well, I tell you what, over the years and when I was in office, I spent 4 years going through hell delivered by my own party. And they weaponized oversight. They demonized me. They did everything. They threw the kitchen sink at me. They even got George Gascon to impanel a grand jury to try to indict me on anything they could find, and they couldn't find anything. That's how desperate this crowd was. And I just realized, you know what, it's time to end this nonsense, this party of ideology that's not grounded in reality. And let's go towards making California golden again. Let's make it, work, for average people. And I think last week and Friday, as a matter of fact, it hit close to home. If it hadn't already, I found out that the county had secretly done an investigation of me and suspended me for 5 days without pay after I was retired for something that I had no idea what it was about. And they just discovered in a deposition on Friday. That's how evil this crowd is. They're so desperate to cling on to power.
All right. So I guess we could dive into that. I guess in some respects it doesn't really matter. I don't know how they suspend you without pay when you're already retired.
They can't. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
They don't
ridiculous. Care. So was it then, maybe it's a combination of both these things, the attacks because you weren't 100% willing to spew their talking points? Or did President Trump, the Make America Great Again movement, the idea of freedom and gun rights and free speech, was that just as attractive as well?
Well, yeah, his goals definitely resonated with me because I think he's on the right path. We can agree or disagree on methodology, but his goals are ones that are going to make America, again, great again, make America work. And the party of destruction right now is the Democratic Party. They have long since abandoned what JFK stood for, or FDR. No, like I said yesterday, this is the party of BS and AOC. You can't get further to the left than those two knuckleheads.
Was there a moment, I tell the story often, when I moved from the Northeast, I was a Giants fan, and I moved to Dallas, and I was working for the local station, and I was traveling with the Dallas Cowboys, and then I'm here 5, 6, 7 years, and the Giants are driving, and I'm standing in the end zone, and all of a sudden I found myself hoping the Giants don't get a touchdown and rooting for the Cowboys. And I said, what in the world has happened to me? And so now I'm a Cowboys fan because I embrace, being in this community. Was there a moment for you when you realized, you know what, I need to officially switch parties?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's something I've been considering for a while now, obviously. But when I think the LA Times themselves, they definitely crystallized it, because no matter what I did, no matter what good I did, even though I completed every campaign promise I campaigned on in 2018, it didn't matter to that crowd. And then they started going after children. I mean, you got Scott Wiener at the California legislature trying to basically decriminalize sex trafficking of minors. That just is so patently offensive. And then parents' rights being removed from schools because they don't count anymore. It's just, they went far too many steps. They say, I'm done with this crowd. They're beyond repair. And then after Trump delivered a shellacking to the far left in the elections in 24, did they come back to their senses and say, hey, you know what, maybe we need to go back to the center again? No, they doubled down, which is just mind-boggling. Because, I cannot associate with that group anymore.
All right, we're talking with former L.A. County Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who has made the switch from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party, made that announcement at the Unite IE conference this Saturday in Ontario, California. Sheriff, when this is all going down, I would normally say, all right, well, we know you're a law and order guy because you were a sheriff, but that doesn't mean anything in today's Democrat world. You can be a law enforcement leader of a big agency and not a law and order guy or gal, unfortunately. But over the years, you always wanted to enforce the laws on the books. You always knew the importance of punishing criminals and embracing victims. That was not happening with the Democrat Party. You would speak out against that. I had asked you a number of times over the 4 years that I've known you, interviewing you on this program and others, hey, are you going to make the switch? Are you going to make the switch? Did you think I was crazy back then asking you that, or did you ever think maybe I should? Or was this a recent discovery?
No, it was something I was contemplating for a while, and it's just the political realities in California are so dismal. But I figure, you know what? I think we're going in the right direction with what Trump's doing, and this is something that they killed all hope in me ever thinking they were going to become a party of law and order and common sense. And I said, no, it's time to change now. Let's make California, the once great state. Let's make it golden again. And it's not going to happen with a one-party state. Simple.
No.
And I think we can achieve that with the Republican Party getting back into office.
All right. So, Sheriff Villanueva, Jen and I both agree we'd love to see you run for sheriff again and take back your old seat. Is that in the plans? Is it a consideration that once you put an R next to your name in this state, especially in a county like L.A., you're dead in the water? What does the future hold for you?
Well, positions like sheriff and DA and even Board of Supervisors are not partisan offices. On the ballot, they're nonpartisan. And I think we need to get back to actually putting people in office that know what the hell they're doing and can get the job done. None of this, vote blue no matter who. That has been an absolute disaster for the entire state. And I think when we get back to, talking about voting for people, voting for policies, what they're going to achieve in office, I think we're going to be in a better place.
Would you consider running for sheriff again?
That's something my wife and I have to make that decision. We're busy now locking horns with the county and litigation. Once we're done, we'll think about that, and then we'll probably know this summer.
All right. Well, that's not a no, so we'll take it. We'll take it as that, Sheriff.
All right.
Hey, Sheriff Villanueva, it is great to have you as a member of the Republican Party. We're honored to call you a friend, certainly a friend of this program as well, and a friend of L.A. County. Thank you, sir, for coming on, as always, and congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you, Grant.
Absolutely. Folks, I'll tell you what, things like that, when you have people that were in positions of power, being the sheriff of L.A. County, probably the largest sheriff's department in the country. When you have a guy like that switch to the Republican Party, Democrats need to take notice. Everyday citizens need to take notice that there are people who really are committed to making California great, America great, that now see the best way to do that is to do it as a Republican. And so I'm grateful for him coming on the program, sharing his feelings and thoughts with us. Congratulations to the sheriff. And I hope he does run for sheriff again. And he'll get our support for sure. Hey, folks, listen up. I got a new deal for you with my friends over at Energized Health. It's called the My 555 Challenge. $5, 5 pounds in just 5 days, guaranteed. That's how much you lose. 5 pounds in 5 days for the low cost of $5. They are going to give you the tips of the 5 things of what not to do when it comes to getting healthy, losing fat, and those types of things. The My 55 Challenge has helped so many people start their weight loss journey. So I urge you, go to my555challenge.com. That's my555challenge.com. Go there today and get started. They're going to lead you on the path to a brand new life. It's a mind, body, soul program. And again, my555challenge.com. You got nothing to lose but the fat, okay? $5, 5 days, 5 pounds. Give them a try, and you make sure you tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. What is it about California? They want to put everybody out of business. They want to put everybody out of a job. First, they raise the minimum wage for fast food workers. Then tens of thousands of fast food workers instantly lose their jobs. Now there's talk that if you have a kiosk in a fast food restaurant, you've got to hire 2 workers for every kiosk you have. Well, what's the point of the kiosk then? Then you might as well just bring back the workers. But you see what they're doing? They're over-regulating so much that nobody's going to want to do business here. So now you're mandating, okay, we're going to mandate $20 an hour minimum wage for someone to put fries in a fryer. And then the business owner says, well, we can't afford that, so we're going to get a kiosk. So then the government says, all right, no, you want a kiosk? Well, then you got to hire 2 workers for every kiosk. This is literally being proposed in Sacramento. Now, will it go through? Maybe. These Democrats are idiots. They're all lawyers. None of them are business owners. None of them know what it's like to actually run a business, to sign the front of a paycheck instead of signing the back of a paycheck. They live in La La Disneyland. No pun intended, La La Land right here in L.A. La La Land has really become a nightmare. This is not the La La Land that I know and love anymore. You shouldn't in La La Land have to feel like you're going to get mugged sitting out on the sidewalk having a cappuccino. But that is where we are now. So they do away with fast food worker jobs. Now California, and I actually think this is a good idea, but I really do think that it's just going to be more jobs going down the tubes. California is poised now to make driverless trucks a reality. Vehicles over 10,000 pounds to be tested. This is including semi-trucks. Now, for those of you that remember, I used to have a trucking company. And I had drivers. At my height, I had 15, 18-wheelers. I ran for FedEx. I had about 20 drivers on the payroll at the time. We would run basically 24/7, hence more drivers than trucks. So would I have loved driverless trucks? You better believe it. Man, think about it. I wouldn't have had to do payroll. I wouldn't have had to pay those payroll taxes. But even more than that, the headaches that come with human beings. Now, I love truck drivers. I do. They move America. I know we got a lot of them listening. But you listening know the truck drivers I'm talking about that will whine about having to do any little thing extra. And so there were times where I was like, boy, if I didn't have to have employees, this business would be fabulous. But in the end, employees make a business, unless, of course, you got driverless trucks. So California right now is the only state in the country with regulations that explicitly ban driverless trucks. So the laws on the books in California basically say you're not allowed to have them. New proposed regulations for autonomous commercial vehicles are subject to public comment that will start next month. Where do you think the pushback is going to come from? The unions, of course. Now, what about the safety and security of driverless trucks? I'm going to tell you something that many of you, including the truck drivers, are not going to be happy about. The trucks, driverless trucks, are going to be far safer than any human being. I hate to break the news to you, folks, but computers, by and large, when it comes to things like this, do the job better. Now, why do I say that? Humans can fall asleep at the wheel. A computer can't. A computer can short circuit, but when a computer short circuits, it's got things in place to instantly shut the system down and have the truck pull over. When humans short circuit, the opposite happens. They go on tilt. Anybody that plays poker knows about human short circuiting, and then they do really stupid things. So they do the opposite. So a truck driver, when he's sleepy, instead of pulling over like he should, he may try to push it to the next exit. A computer doesn't push it to the next exit. So this is why my son, I told you, we got him a Tesla. I don't have the driverless capabilities. It's $99 a month. I figure, you know what, he's got to learn to drive on his own. But I promise you, a self-driving Tesla is going to be way safer than a 16-year-old with a couple of weeks behind the wheel. People get mad at me when I say that, but computers are better at doing a lot of jobs than humans are, including surgery. Doctors will tell you these computerized robots that come in and do surgery on you, they're much more precise than a human hand. God forbid you got some doctor who had a couple drinks the night before. He's shaking as he's slicing open your gallbladder. Thanks, but no thanks on that. 25 states representing more than half the U.S. population already have autonomous regulations on the books, meaning they can. Most states don't have any regulations, meaning you probably can, but they're getting to it. Manufacturers must get a permit for testing with a safety driver. This is the things that's going to happen first. It's a multi-phase permitting process. Next, a driverless testing permit, then a deployment permit to send its trucks onto the freeway. According to the state's motor vehicle department, there are more than 30 manufacturers testing light-duty autonomous vehicles with drivers, 6 companies testing without a driver, and 3 already authorized to operate. Soon, heavier autonomous trucks will have the access to the same 3-step permitting process, and eventually busy LA County and freeways. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? 855-785-8255. Before we go, I want to talk about Elon Musk a little bit. Elon Musk, speaking of driverless vehicles, speaking of innovation like you would never believe, Elon Musk has done a great job with this. Does he have any regrets over his time with President Trump? His businesses have taken a hit. I want to roll that clip for the guys behind the glass. Cut 27, if you would, for me. Cut 27, Elon Musk.
Regret doing what you've been doing? Do you regret coming out and supporting President Trump?
Yes, no.
Cut that
part.
I hope not.
No, I think it was essential for President Trump to win to ensure that America remained great, and that we reached greater heights. Really, some very basic things need to happen. We need to have, obviously, a secure border. We need to have safe cities. We need to have sensible spending. I think if President Trump had not won, I think the Democrat campaign to import vast numbers of illegal voters would have succeeded. And they would have naturalized vast numbers of illegals during the sort of Kamala regime.
That was, of course, their plan. Thank God for Elon Musk getting in here and reining things in. And there's still a lot of work to do, and his team is still going to be hard at work even when Elon Musk leaves. So that is a good thing. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you here tomorrow.